You need to watch this if you crave chills down your spine. Welcome to Soul Studios. Here, true crime meets the unknown. Suspense lurks in every shadow, and supernatural forces whisper from the dark. We craft chilling, edge-of-your-seat short stories inspired by the eerie, the unexplained, and the most haunting mysteries. 3 new stories drop every week, each one darker than the last. Are you ready to step inside? Subscribe now before the next story finds you.
On the night of March 18th, a tenant hears strange dragging noises coming from the supposedly vacant apartment beneath theirs. The landlord insists it's been empty for 12 years, but each passing night the sounds grow more deliberate, more unsettling. When curiosity forces the tenant to investigate, they uncover something chilling that defies explanation and may have already sealed their fate. If you crave terrifying, true account-style horror stories, subscribe to Soul Studios for new nightmares every week. Turn off the lights, press play, and remember, some noises are better left unheard. I woke at 2:45 a.m. to directly beneath my bedroom floor. My eyes snapped open. The apartment below me was supposed to be empty. It had been vacant for 12 years. So why did it sound like furniture was being dragged across the floor down there? My heart pounded as I strained to listen. There it was again, louder this time. Something or someone was definitely in the apartment below, and that was just the beginning. I had moved into this old brownstone only 2 weeks ago. The place was affordable and close to work, and the landlord told me up front that the unit right below mine was empty and had been for years. That first night, I heard nothing unusual, but on my third night, just as I drifted off, I was jolted awake by a dull thudding from below. I lay in bed, heart racing, telling myself it was just the pipes or the building settling. After all, old buildings do make random noises at night. I managed to shrug it off until morning. The next day, I casually mentioned the noise to Mr. Calder, the landlord. His reaction was a dismissive wave. "No one's down there, trust me. Probably just the plumbing or a rat in the walls," he said with a shrug. He assured me the apartment below had been locked and unoccupied for over a decade, and there was no way anyone could be inside. I left the conversation feeling like an over-imaginative fool. Still, Mr. Calder promised to have the maintenance guy check it out. That afternoon, I accompanied Charlie, the maintenance man, as he unlocked the door to the downstairs unit. A stale, dusty smell whooshed out. Empty. Charlie flipped on his flashlight, the power wasn't even on, and we peered into each room. Plastic drop cloths covered the floor. A few leftover nails and paint cans were scattered about from a long-ago renovation. No signs of life, no footprints in the dust. Charlie knocked on a few pipes and walls and turned to me with a grin. "See, solid. No leaks, no critters. Sometimes old buildings just talk at night. Don't worry about it." I wanted to believe him. That night, I settled in with a sense of relief. Maybe it really had just been the plumbing. I fell asleep telling myself that. I jolted awake again. The clock read 12:13 a.m. It sounded like something heavy being slowly dragged across a wooden floor. I held my breath. The sound seemed to travel from one end of the apartment below to the other, directly under me. I could almost feel the vibration in my mattress springs. I crept out of bed and tiptoed to my living room. The floor was cold under my bare feet as I moved to the spot directly above the downstairs living room. The noises continued, a methodical dragging and an intermittent muffled tap, tap. I knelt down and pressed my ear to the floor. For a moment, it was quiet. I strained, ears pricking at the slightest hint of movement. Then I almost jumped. It sounded like a hard object, a chair leg, a crowbar, dropping on the floor below. That was enough. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, and dialed Mr. Calder. He answered on the fourth ring, voice thick with sleep and irritation. I hated to be that tenant, but I was genuinely spooked. I explained in a whisper that I was hearing it again, the noises in the empty apartment. With me on the line, he grudgingly shuffled down the hall to his own unit's window. His apartment was on the first floor, facing the street. He peered out back toward the windows of the vacant unit below mine. After a long pause, he muttered, "No lights on. No one's there. Go back to bed, kid. Old buildings and their pipes, you know." I wanted to protest, but his tone made it clear he thought I was imagining things. I hung up, feeling frustrated and a little embarrassed. Maybe I was overreacting. I crawled back into bed, determined to ignore any further sounds. For a while it was silent. I closed my eyes. A single, sharp slam from below made me sit bolt upright. It sounded like a door slamming shut inside the empty apartment. I couldn't ignore that. Adrenaline surging, I threw on some clothes, grabbed my keys and a heavy flashlight, and decided to take a look myself. I crept down the stairwell toward the second floor. The hallway lights flickered, and I silently cursed the building's antiquated wiring. The door to the apartment below mine, Unit 2B, stood in shadow at the end of the hall. As I approached, I noticed something that hadn't been there before. The door was ajar about an inch. Mr. Calder always kept it padlocked, but now the padlock hung loosely, unlatched. A chill ran through me. I nudged the door open with my flashlight. I whispered, "Hello? Anyone here?" My voice sounded meek and stupid. No reply. I swung my flashlight's beam in an arc. The last time I'd been here with Charlie, it was mostly empty, but now my blood turned to ice. There was furniture inside. A sagging plaid sofa, a small table, and in the corner of the living room, a tall metal shelving unit. None of that had been there before. I stepped inside as quietly as possible, sweeping the light around. The furnishings looked old, like thrift store pieces, but there were also personal items. A mug half filled with some dark liquid on the floor by the sofa, a rumpled blanket, even framed pictures on the wall. How on earth had someone moved all this in without anyone noticing? My mind spun. Was someone living here in secret? It wouldn't be the first time. I'd heard true stories of intruders secretly camping in attics or crawl spaces for months. Could that be what I was dealing with? I took a cautious step toward the hall that led to the bedroom and kitchen. The air was icy cold and still. The beam of my flashlight danced along the hallway walls. My pulse thudded in my ears. Suddenly, I froze. My foot had stepped on something. I lifted it and shone the light down. Beneath my shoe was a small piece of glass. I crouched and picked it up. It looked like a shard from a broken picture frame. I realized one of the photo frames on the wall had fallen and shattered. That must have been the bang I heard that sent me down here. In my light, I could see the frame's photo peeking out. It was a black and white picture of my apartment's exterior door. My skin crawled. Why would someone frame a photo of my front door? Before I could inspect further, a floorboard creaked behind me. I whirled around, heart in my throat, swinging the flashlight wildly. Nothing. Just the empty living room and that ghastly sofa. I stepped backward toward the open front door, suddenly aware of how vulnerable I was in the dark. My flashlight beam passed over the sofa again, and I nearly screamed. There was a figure seated on the sofa, but as the light fell fully on it, I exhaled a shaky breath. It was a mannequin. A life-sized female mannequin, propped upright in the corner of the couch. Someone had put a long black wig on it and a scarf around its neck. Its blank plastic face was turned toward me, as if watching. I tried to calm my breathing. This was beyond weird. I inched toward the exit, every instinct telling me to leave right now. That's when I heard a soft sound from deeper inside the apartment. A faint click followed by a low whirring noise. It sounded like it came from the back room, the bedroom directly below my own. It reminded me of a camera shutter, or some kind of small machine. My courage snapped. I bolted out of the apartment, slamming the door behind me. I raced up the stairs and locked myself into my unit. What did I just see? Who sets up a secret apartment with mannequins and photos of my door? I dialed the police with trembling fingers. 2 officers arrived within 15 minutes. I must have sounded hysterical on the phone because they showed up in full force, hands hovering near their holsters. I let them in and tried to explain. The noises, the furniture that appeared, the unlocked door, the mannequin. I could tell from their faces that they didn't know what to make of me. But when Mr. Calder arrived with the key, angry at being woken up by flashing red and blue lights, I insisted we check the unit together. All of us went down, me, the landlord, 2 cops. The door was still closed. I'd pulled it shut when I fled. Mr. Calder frowned. "I left this padlock on," he mumbled, showing the still unlocked padlock dangling uselessly. One officer pushed the door open and aimed his flashlight. To my vindication and utter confusion, the living room was exactly as I'd left it, furnished, messy, and very clearly lived in. The cop's flashlight caught the mannequin's pale face, and he let out a surprised grunt. "What the hell?" The officers swept the apartment methodically. I hovered by the front door with the landlord. In the beam of their tactical lights, we saw evidence of a hasty exit. The back window in the bedroom was wide open, curtains fluttering. Whoever had been here must have escaped just minutes before I brought the police. They had been in the back bedroom when I entered, I realized with a sickening lurch, possibly watching me as I stood in the living room. The cops cleared each room, no person found, no intruder to arrest, but what they did find made my blood run cold. Spread across the small kitchen table were a dozen or so Polaroid photographs. One officer lifted a photo with gloved fingers, brows furrowing. "Is this some kind of prank?" he muttered. He showed it to Mr. Calder and me. I felt the room tilt sideways. The photo was a snapshot of what looked like a crime scene, specifically a crime scene in my apartment upstairs. The angle of the photo was odd, low to the ground, but I recognized my living room rug in the image, stained with blood. On the floor in the photo lay a figure, face down, unmoving. The image was washed out and blurry, but the figure's clothes looked eerily like my clothes. My vision tunneled. That never happened, I stammered. "I live alone, and I'm right here. Obviously, I'm not dead on my floor." The second officer picked up another photo, his face grim. "There are date time stamps on these, for next week." He handed it to me. It was another angle of my apartment, this time looking at the couch. Thick dark splatter, blood, drenched the wall. The timestamp imprinted at the bottom was 5 days from now, 11:47 p.m. I felt like I might vomit. My knees buckled and I grabbed the door frame to steady myself. "Is this some kind of sick threat?" Mr. Calder exclaimed. He was as pale as I was. Neither cop answered immediately. They were too engrossed fanning out more Polaroids on the table. Each one showed a slightly different view of what looked like a grisly murder scene in my apartment. My hallway, my kitchen, my bathroom, all depicted with splashes of blood and signs of violent struggle. And every photo had a timestamp in the coming week. One even had tomorrow's date. I realized with dawning horror that the noises I'd heard weren't just random bumps in the night. They were the sounds of someone staging these scenes, or perhaps rehearsing something awful beneath my feet. The dragging sounds. Could it have been that person moving furniture to match my layout? Setting up some twisted tableau? One photo caught my eye. It showed the mannequin on that plaid sofa downstairs, except now the mannequin was dismembered. Red paint or blood splashed around it. In the photo, its plastic arm was lying on the floor. I glanced over to the sofa. The mannequin sat intact, arm attached. That photo was depicting something that hadn't happened yet, or maybe had been cleaned up. My head spun with possibilities, none of them good. The police collected all the photos and evidence. By 5 a.m., they had canvassed the building and surrounding alley. No sign of the mysterious intruder. It was as if whoever, or whatever, had been downstairs vanished into thin air, leaving behind their bizarre mock crime scene. I found myself sitting on my sofa upstairs, wrapped in a blanket, answering the detective's gentle questions while forensics teams swept my apartment, just in case. The lead detective showed me one last Polaroid they'd bagged as evidence, and this one made my heart falter. It was a photo of me. I was asleep in my bed, clearly visible through my bedroom window, Time-stamped 3 nights ago at 3:15 a.m. That was the exact time I'd first heard the noises below. The intruder had been watching me, possibly triggering those thumps right as I slept, luring me into fear while they carried out their plan in secret. The thought made my skin crawl. When the sun came up, Mr. Calder changed the locks on Unit 2B and boarded up the broken window. The police left an unmarked car outside to monitor for a few nights, but whoever had set up camp down there never returned. The officers were just as disturbed as I was. I overheard one of them say to the other, "I've never seen anything like this. Photos of a crime before it's committed." A week later, after endless questioning, I packed my things and moved out. I couldn't spend another night in that building, not with the memory of those photos seared into my mind. Even now, I lie awake in my new place, jumping at every creak and settling sound. The slightest thump in the night sends my heart racing. I often wonder if the horror in those Polaroids was averted by my discovery, or if I just walked away from an elaborate warning, a fate deferred. The crime scene they depicted hasn't happened. Not yet, anyway. But I'm constantly looking over my shoulder. Sometimes I wake in the middle of the night, convinced I hear a faint dragging sound beneath the floor of my new apartment. I can't tell if it's real or just in my head. Either way, I'll never forget what I saw in that apartment below. Some things that hide in the dark don't just watch, they prepare. I left that building thinking I'd escaped, but sometimes late at night, I swear I still hear something dragging just beneath me. And if those photos were a warning, then maybe my time is only running out. They said no one lived below me. The photos proved otherwise.
Every story has an end, but here, the mysteries never stop. Thank you for watching and being a part of this journey into the unknown. Your support keeps these stories alive, and there's plenty more waiting for you. We drop 3 new stories every week, so if you crave suspense, the unexplained, and the downright chilling, make sure you're subscribed and ready for what's next. Until then, keep your lights on, your doors locked, and remember, some stories stay with you long after they're told.